We talked about this. So if you've been
Oh,
on social media recently, you've probably seen a lot of talk about AI generated art. In order to understand the severity of the issue surrounding AI art, we have to understand how AI works. When an AI creates a piece of art, it doesn't generate that content
it's a good place to stay.
out of
To
thin
start.
air. Instead, there needs to be an input in order for there to be an output. In the big picture, machine learning companies such as Stability AI generate profits from high quality media. And the creation of this media depends entirely on training their AI on a specific dataset. These images are made by assembling visual data that have statistical correlations to each other to produce a final result that looks acceptable. That's a very simplified explanation, but that's the gist of how AI systems work. All you gotta know is in order for that image to be generated, there has to be a dataset, and that is where the problem comes in. In these datasets,
Kind of like a human, eh? You're not going to be able to train a human to be a human if there's no data set. So just consider that as we watch this.
there exists billions of copyrighted images, of artworks, of photographs, of people, all of which was collected from the internet without the consent of the intellectual property owner. My personal
Humans do this every day. Do you think any composer or artist who have ever existed just completely did something without anything else in mind or pulling from any bias or like it doesn't make a lot of sense, these arguments that people make. And I don't think they truly understand how this stuff is working, because it actually is not straight pulling. You know, you can ask it to design something in the style of such and such. That might be outlawed soon. But it is actually not straight up copying. People are not understanding the nuances here.
artwork that I share on my Instagram page has been used to train AI models. And chances are, if you've shared your work online or even images of yourself, your house, your environment, you might have been included in these datasets. And if you guys want a really great in-depth look on this topic, I recommend Steven Zapata's video, which I'm going to link in the description below. The problem here is
I really don't think people are even people come at this with such a simple approach. For example, it's not going to take long for us. We'll run out of data, to train on. So what do you think happens at that point to make these things better? Think about it. What people could do, right? This isn't that complex, a deeper thought, is to actually start, writing a program that iterates on itself. And so, you could obviously start from something. From this, right? Say this photo, you iterate on this, and it changes ever so slightly. So after like maybe 100 iterations, it's something completely different that has nothing to do with this. Okay? And then you do this a billion, gazillion, whatever times with everything. And so you have so much data at that point. And then that's what they're pulling from. So they're pulling from like this reservoir of stuff that didn't even exist. Do you see how sort of much deeper this rabbit hole goes than people claiming, it just steals this? It's like, okay, currently, people are going to make these cases, but in the future, not in like the very, very close future, it'll iterate on things, and you'll look at stuff that it's pulled from, which will look nothing like this. And so then what are they going to say then? So this is a problem. This issue is so much deeper than people are claiming. And the arguments people are making right now will be redundant in a very short amount of time, okay? And I understand that scares people, even just this. That's going to be, if people are getting really scared by this, they're not prepared for the future and how much crazier it's probably going to get in a very short amount of time.
your artwork and my artwork, the moment we share them online, they are opted in to the system. If your work so much as exists online, it will be found and it will be used in a piece of AI art. And we as artists are not being protected.
Exactly, Mr. Sky.
This is genuinely an industrial scale violation of each and every one of our rights. Stability AI has claimed, quote, because diffusion models are prone to memorization and overfitting, releasing a model trained on copyrighted data could potentially result in legal issues.
There's going to be a way around this. Here's an idea to get a way around this, right? Only use data that is not copyrighted, that you sort of get some artists to make some stuff for you, right? Even if it's 5 pictures, you design an AI to iterate on these 5 images, and from those 5 images, it actually extrapolates everything. If that sounds crazy to you, I think that is going to be possible. Do you see the problem here? Now you had 5 images and you don't actually use any copyrighted data. It just uses this, maybe even 1 image. Or maybe you don't need any images to train on in the future. It just is able to, you give it some parameters of doing things and it just does things. I think you might need to give it a few examples, but I think we can get around this eventually. So I don't think people are comprehending. Like, this might not be an issue for much longer. And, so people are carrying on, but they're not. I think we need, if we want to attack this, we need to attack the actual problem. Rather, the real problem is not copyright of art. Okay, the real problem is AI and stealing human jobs. That's the discussion we need to have, and we need to have a serious discussion if we want to, seriously change our world. A lot of people are going to suggest we don't have any say in this, and it's inevitable. But I think we do. I think humans can stop this stuff if they want, by just outlawing things dramatically. Sounds like a fun sci-fi novel. But so yeah, we really need to actually spur discussion on AI and human jobs, not copyright in AI art. Like, that is just primitive. It's gonna change rapidly, and these points will be redundant.
Basically admitting to the fact that their models directly use copyrighted content, and many of these generated images tend to look identical to their original copyrighted counterparts. Images and text descriptions are taken from the internet. Copyrighted images tend to look identical to their original copyrighted counterparts. Images and text descriptions are taken from the internet through a practice called data mining, which allows these companies to accumulate an incomprehensible amount of data. And these corporations have
W take right here. It's going to create way more jobs than it replaces, and people just aren't thinking about this. Since when has a new technology emerged and resulted in us having less jobs? Just because people don't have to scrub a toilet anymore doesn't mean, they won't have anything to do. Everyone might become an artist. It's like the world doesn't realize, art makes our world livable. So imagine if everyone was an artist and their job was to make art. Does that not sound like a beautiful fucking world? Right? We could give everyone a job. We could just make everyone make art. It's like, you have to paint a picture. You have to write a story every week. Otherwise, you go to jail or something, right? Like, that's great. That's silly. But you get what I mean. Like, we can just arbitrarily give people jobs. That's what we already do. We arbitrarily make people go and, walk around with a broomstick. They don't need to do that.
Intentionally targeted legal loopholes to allow them to do this. Stability AI itself funded the creation of the largest dataset being used, which is called Lion 5B. This dataset contains 5.8 billion points of image and text, as far as to use directly the names of certain artists to create their generated content. For example, concept artist Greg Rutkowski.
It is a problem right now. I will give them that. And but there's ways around this, and these points are going to be so redundant so soon. So there's no need to sort of waste time here.
And what's most concerning is that when these models are trained on images of your artwork, they are unable to forget. So almost all of these models are now working with tainted data. Their generations now all involve copyrighted content which has been gathered without the knowledge or permission of the copyright owner. It is directly hurting artists.
There's nothing we can do about this. There's nothing.
Who have put their passion and their soul into everything that they create, only for their work.
Apart from just completely outlaw AI, right? But whether we can do that, no one really knows.
To be scraped from the internet without their permission and used in training AI models. To the large corporations and businesses behind AI, the perfect world would mean one where there doesn't need to be a middleman. There doesn't need to be an artist. It'll be a world where these large businesses can capitalize and monopolize an entire industry. The worst part of it all is you and we don't have the option to opt out, and the AI does not have the option to forget. Now, even with all this being said, a lot of people who are in support of AI will still try to dismiss this point. But if you're on the fence about this, all I ask is that you take a look at the music industry. There have been AI models made to create audio content. But when it comes to audio content and the data that's being used for that, these companies go out of their way to mention that everything being used is copyright free, and that every aspect of that creation process is based on a fair and ethical system that doesn't infringe on the rights of music artists. So please tell me now, why is there such a double standard when it comes to visual artists? Visual art.
There's not a double standard. It's just everyone's trying to protect their ass from getting sued. That's it. It's not a double standard. lots of the AI art models are trying to attack this problem. It's just the AI art is getting way more pushback than the AI music. This guy clearly doesn't realize this. Why? People are much more impressed by what they see. You know, seeing is believing. And, you know, this stuff is actual magic to pretty much all humans on this planet. 99.9% have no idea what the fuck's going on when they see this thing work. And so it's magic to them. It may as well be magic, okay? Music, on the other hand, is like, oh yeah, they don't think it's as special for some reason. But it is. Music's an even bigger problem. But anyway, that's another story.
Just like music has been around since the beginning of humanity, it's been such an integral part of our culture. From being found on ancient artifacts, on carvings, on stone, art is one of the backbones of our humanity. And I absolutely love that music artists have their rights
Exactly, Mobbin.
protected. But if that's the case, why should visual artists be literally trampled on an industry-wide basis? This is simply not artists crying and whining over something that's unreasonable. This is our creation that we hold so near and dear to.
Of course it's not unreasonable. All artists are currently looking into the abyss of, like, just no job. I completely understand. And it must be horrifying if your life has been built up around creating visual art or any kind of art. I think it would be terrifying. And so I feel for these people for sure. But what can we do if we want to live in the future? It's really problematic. I think we need to be sympathetic of these people. But unfortunately, when people are like threatened with just utter destruction, I think they tend to throw out misinformation. They tend to lie to try and save themselves. I don't know. I might be coming across as a bit inhuman right now, and I understand that. The problem is, I think most people don't understand this really seems inevitable if we want to go any further with technology, with humanity as an advanced species.
To our hearts. In some cases, it might be our livelihoods. It might be the way we put food on the table for our families. But in every single case, this is our passion. This is what makes.
All right, I think
just because something is deal with how they approach every single brushstroke. I've seen thousands of studies of my work that people post online and tag me in, and in every single one of those people,
I'm creating something with post-quantum cryptography, which means it's quantum safe. This is going to be really important going forward because there's lots of world experts currently talking about it. Like the World Quantum Congress a couple of weeks ago, they were talking about how, this is the single largest national economic problem, Western society has ever faced, right? And, if you had a powerful quantum computer, which we're in the process of making, all standards of encryption on the internet will just, be brushed over like a piece of butter, right? So, you might want to come look into this problem. You come use my app that I've built on Apple or Windows, 7-day free trial. Come check it out, guys. It's the world's first post-quantum VPN that consumers can use.
Cases, even if it's a complete one-to-one study, I can see the unique human touch that made that piece their own. So no, an artist taking inspiration from someone else's work and studying a reference is not the same as
it is absolutely same.
AI image generation. There is also that really weak argument that this technology is here to stay. It's inevitable. So why don't you just accept it and stop?
It's a very weak argument for why it's different. Especially when there's so much black box things happening in the AI, these AI models still. It's amazing that you can get people who, I'm not sure who this guy is, if he's a software engineer or just an artist, but it just amazes me that people have such strong opinions about how these things work when we don't know what's happening up here. We don't know what consciousness is. So why do people suspect it's so different? We don't know. Like, can we have a little more, have a little less hubris when talking about such things? We don't know.
Fighting. And that just seems to be a fundamental misunderstanding of why artists are upset and what we're fighting for. I myself, and I know a lot of artists, are not here to erase AI technology completely. We don't want to do that, and we know we can't do that. The thing is, AI is here to stay. I accept that and I welcome that. But the way these systems are organized and structured to take advantage of millions of artists is something that we are not okay with. It's not about pushing back against AI technology itself. It's about pushing back against these unethical practices of using our work, commercializing it, all of which without our...
Unfortunately, I don't think people in these areas are ever going to be okay with it because they're not understanding it. That's a problem. They're not going to bother to try and understand it or listen to the arguments people playing with it make. They're just going to continue along with these misinformed opinions as to why, how it's copying things all the time. And, I think there are ways we can give visual artists or just artists a fairer deal, because this is a pretty raw deal.
Consent. Artists such as myself...
I feel for this guy, but I think, we can come up with better things and software that we can do to help artists. There's got to be ways and things we can do. But unfortunately, I think the world is going to change dramatically. And so, my empathetic side is going to drag me down, I think. Anyway, let's move on to maybe